I have an idea for a consumer business. Where should I start?
I think the best place to start, a lot of people want to sort of launch and go very big and they want the gratification of sort of getting it out there. But I always encourage people to slow down and sort of start humbly, which is to say, like, what's the minimum viable product? If you're a CPG, consumer packaged good brand like Rise, make a very simple version of your product. It doesn't need fancy branding and so on. Give it to friends and family, have them give it to their friends and so on, and get feedback, right? Iterate your product. If it's a software thing, you don't need to build an app or a website. You can do it in Google Sheets or some no code tool that's very, very simple. Just test to see if your thesis holds any water. Test to see if you're really solving a problem. Test to see if people really like what you're making. And iterate when it's very small and very inexpensive to make changes either to your cold brew formula or to the software itself. And until you're getting pretty unanimously positive feedback, only then do you move to actually getting a co-packer or making the branding or launching the website or writing the first line of code. So fail fast, learn, iterate, build that minimum viable product.
Just to touch on that extremely briefly, how do you ensure that the feedback that you're getting is honest and not just friends and family puffing you up?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it is friends and family puffing you up. Like your mom or dad or sister's always going to say like, it's great, good work. My mom wouldn't. She'd be honest and tell me it sucks. But yeah, I mean, that's why ideally you push it a little further. It's friends of friends, or it's, bring some samples of it on the street of the city you live in and just let people try. Um, the more sort of honest, unbiased feedback you can get, the better. Um, so get the product in people's mouths, particularly if it's an edible product, but just metaphorically, if it's a piece of software or something, like have someone who owes you nothing try it, ideally 5, 10, 20, 50 someone's, and anecdotally get feedback, qualitatively get feedback, but then also, send them a survey, an NPS. How likely would you be to recommend this to a friend? How disappointed would you be if this was never an actual product? If over 40% of people say very disappointed, which is one of the options, then you're good to go. If most people are like, meh, like I wouldn't care too much, then you're not really solving a problem. And I think what most people do is they skip through because the exciting moment is, I launched the site, I did the thing. Hey, all my friends, I'm so brave and cool for being an entrepreneur. And they want that emotional payoff that they skip over the sort of testing phase, the homework phase. And entrepreneurship is a lot about doing a lot of testing, having most things fail, but identifying the one path that will succeed, taking it and repeating the process.
Our next question. I've sold to friends and family and they love it. Now what?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I mean, like, I think friends and family can be like a good low risk way to get your product out there and get some feedback and hopefully just be like, listen, you're not helping me if you're blowing smoke up my ass. Be honest. Do you like the flavor? Do you like the can? Do you like the this? Do you like the that? And have them help you iterate. I'm going to do something really disruptive and let my dog out because she's freaking out right now. So then the next step is like getting in front of people that are not your family. And that would be going to friends and family who are, connected and say, hey, can you please pass this along to other friends of yours so that I can get a little bit less biased feedback. Or you start spending money on ads. So you run, $500 of Facebook ads and you get 10 new customers and you call them all up and talk to them. And then you improve around the feedback they give you and then let 10 more customers in. And so pretty affordably, you can spend a little bit of money and kind of pulse it. Some people think once I start Facebook ads, I should run them every day forever. I say spend $500, turn them off. Now you have a cohort, learn from that cohort, make the changes that you want to make, change the messaging, change the ads, change whatever you have to change, including the product itself, and then get the next cohort and the next one and keep iterating. But you don't need to be spending money while you're in like learning and iteration mode. So spend, learn, spend, learn.
The note on Facebook ads brings us to our next question. I am getting the best feedback. How do I tell the world?
Yeah, again, I think if you have feedback from people that don't have your last name or don't owe you something and you feel like you have unbiased positive feedback, again, they're good markers of this. Like, what's your NPS score? What's your percent disappointed score? So, how many people would be very disappointed if your product no longer exists, if it's more than 40%? And again, ideally, you send that to people who do not have your last name. Um, then you can start working up the funnel. So the next thing I would do is make sure that your middle of funnel is solid so that you have a nurture sequence. When someone comes to your site and buys something, they get 10 emails over the next 20 weeks that are really thoughtful and informative and additive to them. You have retargeting ads set up on Facebook whereby people that have shown interest in your product but haven't bought yet are hit up again and again and again. And only then do you move to the top of the funnel. And at the top of the funnel, there are lots of things from Facebook ads to Google AdWords to SEO to one of my clients is on Shark Tank, you name it. Anything where you can reach a lot of people and try to spread the word. But unless you have a product that they're really going to fucking love because you've iterated it, and unless you have a middle of the funnel that's going to nurture them once they're in it, don't bother spending a single dollar at the top of the funnel. Again, most entrepreneurs want to say, I sold 2,000 cans. I have 10,000 visitors. I. But you can sell 2,000 cans by running $10,000 worth of Facebook ads. But if the product sucks or you're not nurturing them, those people will buy, churn, and never come back. And you'll never get that $10,000 back. And you won't be able to sell 2,200 cans the next month, which you do need to. So don't start the engine, don't spend at the top of the funnel until you know that you have a product that people really like and you have a sense of what type of person really likes it. And don't start at the top of the funnel until you have mechanisms to continue to take care of those customers.
What is the bottom up approach to e-commerce?
Yeah, so it's very simply this, like the bottom of your funnel is the checkout button. And the top of the funnel are things like a Facebook ad or a Google AdWord or doing SEO or getting on Shark Tank. And what I say is in that funnel, below the checkout button are passionate customers and then what I call weird customers. And weird customers are those customers where they don't have your last name and they've bought a weird amount of product. Like in the past 2 months, they've bought like 78 cans of it's like, I'm sorry, you drinking 2 or 3 cans of this a day every single day? Like, why? Like, that seems like a lot, you know? And those are often the best and most informative stories. Founders have a story and they tell it again and again and again and again and again. And if they didn't believe it on day one, they certainly do after 5,000 times of selling it to, in this case, distributors, retailers, customers, friends, investors. Our coffee's the best because it has twice the caffeine of normal coffee. And you say that again and again and again and again. If you talk to your weird customers, they might be like, I really like it because it's infused with nitrogen and low acidity. And I have irritable bowel syndrome, and that's why I love it. And you're like, oh my gosh, I've been selling a caffeine story, but there's a whole nother reason that my most passionate customers like my product. And that can inform how you talk about it and who you target with your ads. So bottom up is you start with your weird customers and passionate customers and learn from them. Who are they? What do they have in common? And what are they saying? And who they are and what they have in common should inform who you target with your ads. If it's all 40 to 45-year-old women who just got divorced, fine, target that group of people. If they're all talking about low acidity, talk about that in your ads, skip the caffeine story. Then move up the funnel and get your website to convert properly. For e-commerce, it's 2 to 3%. Food and beverage, 2.1% is the average. So if you have 1,000 people hit your site, 21 people should buy. So optimize your site. You can use tools like Hotjar to look at heat maps of how people are or are not using your site and take out elements of your site that are distracting and really streamline the e-commerce experience. Make sure you have retargeting in place such that you're sending emails to people and following up and building that relationship. Make sure that you have retargeting Facebook ads and so on. So you're really building a relationship. And then and only then do you spend all your money at the top of the funnel. And so you start from the bottom and go up. You don't start at the top and go down as most people do.
Our next question, why is the bottom of the funnel most important by far?
I think the single most important formula for a young entrepreneur to understand is lifetime value divided by customer acquisition cost is greater than 3. And what that basically means in non-fancy speak is the lifetime value. If someone buys $90 worth of cans over their lifetime, which can be defined however you want, a year, 3 years, forever. If they spend $90, how much did it cost to acquire them? And you might have spent $30 on the initial ad to get them to buy. And what you want is the lifetime value to be at least triple the amount that it costs to acquire them. So the bottom of the funnel is all about building lifetime value. If you have a site that converts very well, that will make your CAC, your customer acquisition cost, go down. Better ads, a more performant site means you sell to someone easier, cheaper. But if it's a good product, if you have good nurturing and so on, you can get people to come back and come back again and come back again and come back again. And getting your CAC down is important too. But if your lifetime value is one purchase on average, then you're clearly not selling the product to the right people. You're tricking people into buying your product once with a good ad, and they're never coming back, which means your product sucks or you're not retargeting them. So you have to start with your product and making it really good and something people really want again and again. And you have to retarget them to remind them that you exist, to build that lifetime value, so that lifetime value divided by customer acquisition costs can be greater than 3. You cannot raise a Series A unless that statement is true.
How, you've touched on this briefly, but how are lifetime value and customer acquisition cost related?
It's this delicate balance of you want to get your customer acquisition costs lower, but you also want to get your lifetime value up higher. If you can do both of those things at once, your LTV to CAC ratio, lifetime value to customer acquisition cost ratio, will grow exponentially. If you just do one, lifetime value is going up and CAC is the same, or lifetime value is the same and CAC is going down, your lifetime value to CAC ratio grows linearly. Linear versus exponential. If you don't move either, you're just going to die as a company. So the ideal case scenario is that you're working on keeping customers around longer and working on getting that first purchase to happen for cheaper. But if I had to choose one to focus on first, it would be get people to stay around longer. And until you can really get people to stay around for longer, then and only then do you spend money, time, and energy on optimizing your customer acquisition costs.
Which is more important, lifetime value or customer acquisition cost?
Definitely lifetime value. I'm sure different people would say different things. I don't think that's a rule per se, but again, for me, repeat business is the lifeblood of any company. Like, there are only so many people in the world that like cold brew. And some of my clients have very specific products, that like there might only be 42,000 people in the United States that will love this product. And so if you get 20,000 of those people and your product sucks because it's an early version of it, you might never get them back. It's at a certain point you run out. It's called TAM, total addressable market. How big is the market that might have interest in your product? In cold brew, it's a lot bigger than, say, kelp jerky, which is another brand I work with. Kelp jerky, some people will love kelp jerky, but a lot of people are like, kelp or jerky, I don't like either of those things. Definitely not together. Keep it away from me. And so the TAM, the total addressable market, might be much smaller. And so you don't want to burn your shots on goal. You don't want to introduce yourself to people before you're ready. So focusing on lifetime value and making sure that when someone does come through your system, they happen to stick around. That's the key.
Why is the middle of the funnel important? And can you give me some examples as to that?
The middle of the funnel should just be viewed as sort of like a warm reminder that you exist. Gary Vaynerchuk, who I referenced earlier, has a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And when I asked him about it, he said his only regret is that it wasn't jab, 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 right hook. Jabs are just little, in his definition, are just little bits of value. You know, so let's say that you're a kelp jerky brand. It's a vegan product. So here are 5 tips for, you know, making it easier to be a vegan when you're traveling. You know, here are, you know, here's how to make sure that you get enough iron and so if you're not eating this. Or, you know, it can be stuff that isn't so product focused, isn't a right hook. It's not like buy my shit. Most people in the middle of the funnel make the mistake of trying to convert. But if every time they open an email from you, it's like a sale or you trying to sell them something, they're like, okay, enough. And they'll stop opening your emails. If you're building a warm, friendly relationship where you're actually slowly adding value in small ways to their life, they'll continue to open your emails. And then every 4th, 5th, 10th email can be something where you're like, hey, we have a limited SKU that we're only selling online. Wanted you to hear about it first. Here's a 10% discount. Here's this, here's that. Um, so the middle of the funnel is a place where you build relationships with customers and you really build pressure behind the dam for lifetime value.
People inherently don't trust brands, so why is it important to create this relationship?
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I was there at the dawn of the influencer, and like the reason that worked for a hot second is because an influencer was a friend. It was a trusted voice. It wasn't like Rice Krispie selling you something. It was like a food blogger that you trust talking about how Rice Krispie is kind of an unrated cereal, actually. And you're like, well, I trust this person, so I guess I'll give it a shot again. Um, so I think that was bastardized and dragged through the mud and people pissed in the well, to use a lot of metaphors very quickly. And so it just as fast as it was a useful marketing tactic, it became an unuseful one years ago. Like, don't do influencer marketing now. Um, but I think this notion of like being a friend, being a trusted voice, being a value add, like I encourage marketers to be like, you're also a human. How many brands do you follow on Instagram? How thrilled are you when you get an email from a watch company trying to convince you to buy a watch? Like, is that ever something that is like exciting to you? So like, how can you make it seem like it's an email from a friend or a trusted voice? How can you make the Instagram something they look forward to seeing because it's clever or witty or funny or sad or poignant or topical? If your Instagram's just photos of your products, the only people that really care are the people that work at the company and maybe your 5 most passionate customers, but not thousands of people. So being a friend and not being a brand. It used to be, Ella, that brands sold from the top. It was a boardroom of men on Madison Avenue coming up with a campaign and spilling it out to the masses through TV ads. Now marketing works like this, where the masses talk about products online and that informs the marketing. So it all starts with people, not an ad agency or a brand. It starts with people. And so if you're going to try to participate, you have to be a person, not a brand.
What are the best top of funnel tactics to get traction once my site is converting well?
Any top of funnel tactic that is highly measurable. With Facebook, you can run $200, $300, $500 worth of ads, see exactly what's happening. How many people hit my site? How many people looked at a product page for one of our flavors? How many people added to cart? How many people went to their cart? How many people initiated checkout? How many people completed checkout? I can see that whole funnel for Facebook. I can see it for Google AdWords. You know, I can see how my SEO efforts are doing. I can see any number of things. But if someone comes to you selling you a silver bullet of how they're going to get you in front of 40,000 people with their newsletter or this or that or the other, unless it's highly measurable and you can spend a little bit of money to test if it's going to work, don't do it. Like, never, there aren't any silver bullets. So just work under that assumption and never spend 5 or 10K out of the gate without having some understanding of how it's going to perform.
Why is it taking much longer than I thought to get traction?
The world's noisier than it's ever been. Like, we're all inundated with like memes and posts and things from our friends, and not to mention a gazillion ads a day. And so breaking through that noise is incredibly hard. Um, your product isn't as good as you think it is, almost definitionally, right? Founders are cocky and egotistical. You have to be. They think their product's the bee's knees, but other people might not agree. So I think once your product's really good, you need to figure out who thinks that. And again, in this example, I might have been marketing this to entrepreneurs because it has a lot of caffeine in it and it helps you wake up in the morning. But the real story here, as per my weird customers, might be that it's low acidity because of the nitrogen. And I might have been marketing it to the wrong people in the wrong way. So maybe I'm marketing to entrepreneurs about caffeine and it's kind of sort of working. And until I try marketing to people with sensitive stomachs about low acidity coffee, then and only then will it start to take. So as always, my refrain is start at the bottom of the funnel. What do your passionate customers have to say? How can you figure out who they are? What do they have in common? Oh, they all have sensitive stomachs. Find other people with sensitive stomachs and then talk about the things that that initial group found compelling, low acidity, and take your ego out of it. Maybe you really care about the fact that, this is a very clean product. All of the ingredients are organic, very carefully sourced. And maybe the founder of this company really wants to tell that story. But if people don't give a fuck or that's not breaking through, then you're barking up the wrong tree. So again, don't do this. Don't have an idea of what your story is and force it on people. Let people tell you what they're finding compelling and let that inform your story.
Why is restraint more important than enthusiasm?
I am an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. Like, I am abounding with energy. You know, I saw an article recently about the instance of anxiety, bipolar, depression, insecurity in founders, and it's all like 3x, 7x, 14x, and I'm the most neurotic, high energy, passionate person. So I skew in that direction. I think most founders do. Like, to be able to wake up every day and chase something and believe and believe and believe and believe and believe, you have to have a lot of passion, a lot of energy, a lot of vibrancy. But I think young founders, they have small teams, which means very few man hours, and they have small amounts of money. And if you chase every rabbit hole, every opportunity, every idea, you burn those man hours and you burn your money and you lose. And so this is a very niche, very entitled analogy, but for those that have sailed a boat before, there's something called a windward helm, where on a windy day, you take the tiller, the thing you use to steer, and you don't point it straight. You actually have to compensate and fight against the wind. So you point off of straight because the wind is so strong that to keep the boat straight, you kind of have to fight against the wind. And I think it's the same just to keep the boat straight. And I think it's the same thing for a founder like me, where I know about myself that I am over passionate, over eager, over enthusiastic. And so I have to fight against that with restraint, with poise, finding the elegance and simplicity, finding the power of saying no, of crossing 3/4 of the things that I want to do off the list so I can do the 1/4 really well. And that kind of focus is healthy for the founder. It's helpful for the team because they understand the purpose, the mission, the vision much more clearly. It's helpful for investors because they know what they're investing in. If you're just vomiting ideas and energy across a multitude of different executions, you will confuse yourself, confuse your team, turn off investors, blow through all your money and fail. So restraint is so important.